wants to make anything happen, he's got to do it right here. He's got to do it right now. There's going to be nowhere left. And indeed, he does try to absolutely send it through turn 10, through turn 12, and they touch. Indeed, Formula 3 Drivers Champion. Is he going to be able to hold it round the outside here again? Out side by side, final lap of the race. These drivers want to put on a show. Man, we've got 5 red lights and we are green. Home to win the Italian Grand Prix. And that's a little bit more like it. Welcome back in, everybody, to the iFormula League Season 4 here. This is your Pro Series, and I mean, that trailer just gets me hyped. I want to see all of that action. And if you were watching along with us for the AM series, you would have seen arguably one of the most mental races that I have witnessed in quite a while. Around Hungarian, which is a circuit that not a lot of people talk about in terms of the prowess of overtaking here. It's very difficult to do. You really only have 2 places to do it, down into turn 1 and into turn number 2. Maybe if you're daring, you can get it into the last couple of corners, but you have to be brave and you have to be bold to do it. But hey, it's the start of a new season. Everyone's all nervous, excited. We love it here. We are driving, obviously, the Mercedes W12 here in this series. And once again, we're looking for this to be arguably one of the best racing that you will find in terms of Formula racing. I mean, already it's looking like it is going to be a close battle up the top in qualifying. I will quickly throw over the qualifying results as it stands at the moment. Currently, Thomas Vance there is currently on pole position. 14.9 there for him on those soft tires, and doing a pretty good job at just making sure that the car itself is really stable, really nice. Can make sure that he's got everything he needs to really push and make something happen. There are obviously a few people who are relatively new here to this league, so we will see over time just how this field does. Obviously, Thomas Vance, we know him from last season as probably one of the fastest drivers that we have here now, with the likes of Igor gone for the time being. It's a bit of a shame to lose some of our top drivers, especially those who won the championship last season. I believe both champions of last season have pulled out, so there is a championship up for grabs. Any driver who wins will become a new champion, as Eistein there goes through into second place. Eistein is a driver that we have seen a lot of improvement for just over last season in general. In Season 3, we saw a lot of improvement from Eistein, so hopefully we can see the same again. And you know, I'm always impressed at the speed of these cars, being able to cover so much of this circuit so quickly. It is an absolute treat to witness, and I think it's one of those circuits that the Hungarian is, honestly, I want to say, it's almost like Monaco, but with less walls. Like, it's not a street circuit, right? So you can't really take it in the same vein. But even still, it's nice, it's really pleasant to drive, you know, for hot lapping. It's got everything you want, you know, it's got the high-speed stuff, it's got the low-speed stuff, it's got the technical stuff as well. It's all very exciting indeed. But the format for the Pro season is changing a little bit from what it was last time out. If you remember, in Season 3, the F1 were running full race distances, so chances are, more often than not, it was the one-stop strategy. Usually mediums to hards was the go-to for a lot of people, so to now see that potentially changing here as we have slightly less laps than we used to. The way that the format is working is, as per usual, we do have our 25-minute quali, 5-minute warm-up, but then we have a 46-lap race for us today, which is slightly less than what we had last season, so potentially that will mean that we have a lot more people going way harder on the tires, and potentially we see some new race lap records as well. It could open the doors for new strategies. It could open the doors to even a soft to medium if people want to try and risk it. We know how far the mediums do go usually, so potentially it could be on the cards. We ended up discussing as a league before this that we were going to bring down the distance of the F1 just because of the amount of participation was quite low initially, so we thought that maybe having a slightly shorter race length means that you don't have to dedicate as much time out of what could be a busy Sunday for most people. You know, you can jump in, you can do the qualifying, you can do the, you know, get yourself all warmed up and ready to go, as we see Frederick Larson there put it on pole just ahead of Thomas Vance. So once again, we're going to start seeing that battle creep in, as per usual. It was a battle that we had last season. Thomas Larson was, yeah, he was very quick. Frederick Larson was very quick. Thomas Vance was also very quick. Normally we saw Larson and Vance battling it out alongside Igor Filipic, who, again, Igor unfortunately not with us this season, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Obviously still early doors in this qualifying session. Only 11 minutes so far has gone, and we're starting to figure out where everyone's going to sort of sit themselves. At the moment, Frank, I believe that's Frank Bisa. No, that's Jacob Bisa, actually, who is currently in P4. Hard to tell the difference between the two of them. Obviously, both with the same last name, so got to tell just by helmet choice. Can sometimes be hard to spot when they're traveling at, you know, 300 kilometers an hour down the straight. Want to see if there's any other differences between the Bisas, if there's any like roll hoop difference, or, but I don't think there will be. I think it's just going to be we'll have to spot from number. At the moment, no one else really seems to be improving massively. As I say that, Alexander Shanna puts himself up into P4, so good result for him at the moment. Only 4/10 off of Frederick Larson is a very good result. He can be happy with that for sure. Frederick Larson obviously just coming off the back of a rather hectic AM race, and to now go straight into the pros as well. And it's going to be interesting to see. As we do see a lot of red Formula 1 cars now. And some might consider it to be potentially slightly cursed, and the fact that we have red Mercedes. But hey, iRacing needs to give us more paints, that's all I'm saying. We got a couple new people into the league as well. Top 5 are names you might recognize from previous seasons, but in P6 we do have Andre Hansen, who is currently doing some pretty solid laps out there in that Mercedes. We do have Frank Bisa, obviously, the other half of the Bisa family. Jake Potts is also in there. Cold Day from last season has gone up into the pros, so we'll have to wait and see how he does. We do have Gregor as well, new driver into the league, along with Trevor Landrum, and then Daniel Scott is our grid. So 12 drivers on track for this one. 12 drivers on track, and we hope that the race is exciting, to be honest. I'm very much looking forward to it. As we see a big off there from Andre Hansen. Something that we are hopefully not going to see too much of. But people in the stream, let me know. Who are you looking out for today to potentially win the first F1/Pro race of the season? Is there anyone you're supporting? Give a shout out to the people. Let them know. Let them know you're watching. Let them know you're cheering them on. And so we'll jump on board with Eistein, seeing whether or not they can improve on their lap time. As currently Frederick Larson is on a flyer as well. I will apologize to Eistein for cutting him off, but Frederick Larson right now is on an absolute tear. Sector after sector, and I may or may not have commentator cursed him. So, was on for an absolute flyer, and yeah, a little bit too early on power, and he's gonna have to go out, get ready, get all prepared, and do it again. Another man who is currently improving is Thomas Vance. We'll have to see whether or not Vance can improve through the middle sector. It doesn't look like he can. And judging by the time difference, I imagine this is going to be a cooldown lap. He's almost a second off the pace in Sector 2 compared to what Frederick was doing. So, potentially a recharge lap for Thomas Vance before he really gets onto it and tries to get this W12 around the track as fast as he possibly can. In a colour scheme that you're not going to lose out in a car park, I will say that much. A lovely red, black and yellow. I was going to say it's very themed, but I'm not sure not sure it is massively so. As Thomas Vance does go purple through Sector 1. And again, just the speed of these cars through the corner, through the kink. You see how much speed these guys carry. You really have to be aware. If you've got anybody ahead of you or behind you in traffic, you've got to know that that's going to be a tough one. You have to try and get past as fast as possible, but Thomas Vance again improving in Sector 2. We're still on board with him. Hopefully he does not do what Frederick does, gets on the power nice and easy. Out of the final couple of corners we go. Final corner will Thomas Vance put himself on pole position, opens up that big DRS flap, and indeed he does go to pole with a 1:14.4. That is currently 4/10 quicker than what Frederick Larson was able to pull off. And I'm going to be honest, with the pace that Frederick Larson was setting, I still don't think he would have had the pace to put himself on pole, even if that lap did come together. I mean, in the end of the lap, Thomas Vance was a little bit slower coming out of the second to last corner. I'd imagine that's more for safety than anything else. Just, well, I've absolutely nailed the first two sectors. I just want to finish this lap, and he gets a lap in that's really respectful. So now he's going to try and just cool off the tires, cool off the brakes a little, regen the energy, and try and go for one more lap, I'd imagine. Only 7 minutes left of this qualifying session. Then we've got a 5-minute warm-up before we get on to the race itself. and the top 4 are all out on outlaps right now. I'm going to have to see whether or not any of them improve, but Vance is coming back in. So Vance doing a little bit of an in-lap. I'd imagine we'll see him try and go for one more near the end. Daniel Scott is also currently improving. Potentially could push himself up a little bit higher up the field. I want to say, based on the livery choice, he is going to be a teammate of Thomas Vance. And so if you look at Vance's car there, and then quickly switch over to Daniel, they are pretty much identical. So I believe Daniel Scott and Thomas Vance taking the reign here for the Pro Series. I'll have to try and figure out which teams everyone belongs to later on, as Scott does indeed improve, puts himself up there into P5. 2/10 off the back of Alex Shanna, so maybe Thomas Vance can offer a little bit of advice, see where he can end up. As Gregor has also improved, putting himself up into P7, so track is getting a little bit faster now as we do jump on board with Andre, who was pushing it, but maybe a little bit too hard. Jumping on board with Frank Beiser. We're going to see whether or not he can improve. I do like the Beiser's livery. It is quite nice. Yellow and blue are colours you normally didn't think would work together, but somehow they've made that work. And does Frank improve? I believe it is a little bit, but not enough to overtake anyone else. He is still 2/10 off of what Hansen was able to do, so has to maybe try and find a little bit more time in him. We've got Frederick Larson right now on our screens, warming himself up, getting ready for one final, well, potentially the final attempt. Depends on how quickly he can get back in and out. Maybe do a recharge after this flyer. And we will actually, I'm gonna jump on board with him from the cockpit view, or I suppose the roll bar, and we will see just what it's like for these drivers around this Hungarian Grand Prix circuit. Although, as I jump on board with Frederick Larson, it does seem like he is pulling over, and is going to try and go for another lap, hopefully, so we can see what that will actually look like, and see if anyone else is currently improving on that lap times. Daniel Scott currently improving, going through the final corner. May be able to put himself up into P4 with a better lap. However, it's not going to be this time. And again, just a little bit too early on power, and that is what can happen going into turn 1. The exit of turn 1, if you get the power down just a little bit too early, that is all she wrote. We will jump on board with Andre Hansen. Up in the second sector. Down a little bit in the first, so we'll have to wait and see. Can they push it to the line and go up any higher? It doesn't look like they can. Well, they do improve, but not enough to overtake Gregor in front of them. Again, Alex Shanna Fastest in the final sector, but unfortunately, due to the first two sectors not being quite quick enough for him, he'll have to settle in P4 unless he can get one more lap in. And we'll wait and see to see if anyone tries to do it. Potentially the likes of Frederick Larson and Eistein may try. Only a minute left of qualifying, so I'd imagine if you're not already out on track, that's going to be it for your qualifying session. So we have Larson, Chiapolone, and I believe Hansen as your only drivers who are on a lap, or able to be on a lap, as Hansen is coming in. So we've got Frederick Larson and Eistein are the only two drivers still able to take pole position, and we're going to need to see an absolutely mega lap from Frederick Larson. What's he looking like through Sector 1? He is down in Sector 1. Not quite a purple or even a personal best. We'll have to wait and see through Sector 2. He looks a little bit sketchy on the exit of these corners, and yeah, he's just going to have to pull over. That's going to be it for him. Everyone else is pulled back to the pit lane, so as far as qualifying sessions are concerned, that is us done and dusted here for our first qualifying session of the Pro Series. If you're interested in getting involved, of course, come follow us. Get us on the socials. We've got the iFormulaLeague.com, as well as our iFormula Discord. Get yourself involved, come join us for either the Pro if you think you're good enough, or join us for the AM. The AM is absolutely mental. The AM, honestly, if you want to do a race where you don't know where you're going to finish at all, just do the AM. We got 30 cars already. Yeah, we could bump it up. But of course, the Pro Series is where we want to see the absolute top tier. You want to try and get as many drivers as possible driving in the Pros and really sort of showing off just how quick they can be in this Mercedes W12. And just while we are switching to the end of qualifying and going up into the warm-up, I'll let you hear a little bit about one of our sponsors, one of our new sponsors for the league, in Extreme Scoring.
Allow Extreme Scoring to do the work for you.
Extreme Scoring helping us out on all of the lovely back-end stuff that we usually have going on. The Extreme Scoring does help us absolutely massively with sorting out all of the points, sorting out drivers, rosters, all of that stuff. We can incorporate it absolutely everywhere, and honestly, they are one of the only people doing something like that at the moment. So if you're interested in starting up your own league, check them out. I'm sure they will absolutely love to have you on board. Great group of guys, so guys and gals, of course. So check them out. And we'll have to wait and see what this race tells us about the pecking order for the season going on. Obviously, the season going on is not going to be like we had in previous seasons. In previous seasons, we had quite a few races for the F1, the top tier guys. Well, for everyone. We've reduced that a little bit this season to 10 races in Canada length. So over time, we're going to have to see where that leads us. What that means is every point will matter. Every single point will matter in this league. You can't really afford to miss many if you want to take the championship, which, speaking of, points mean prizes, and we do have a few of them. Thanks to our other two sponsors, who you've probably been seeing their logos up in the top right. Butt Kicker, of course. As always, Butt Kicker, amazing products. If you need a bit more immersion, Butt Kicker will have you covered. They provide so many good products, and I believe for the winners, we will have some of their new products being shipped out. So that is always very cool. And considering we're a free league, you get them pretty big prizes. Of course, we absolutely have to say a massive shout out to Butt Kicker. And then one of our new sponsors as well for the league, Prowl Sim Racing, offering us 2 wheels for the winner of each series. So the AM is getting a replica F3 wheel, whereas the pros are getting a replica W12 rim, which will look very, very nice on your rig, I am 100% sure, or even as a decoration piece. So we want to give a massive shout out to all of our sponsors for helping us put on the stuff that we put on and making the show as good as we can for all of you involved. Drivers, fans watching, all of you. We love it all. We do have only around about a minute and a half left. You know, I'm very curious to see what the order will look like for our first race of the season. Obviously, so many new guys coming in. So many old guys coming in as well. We'll see whether or not they've improved at all throughout the off-season. We will be here at Hungarian for the first race of the season, but while we are just at near the end of the warm-up, I will run you guys down through the calendar for the league moving forward. So for the Pro Series, we have today, obviously, the Hungarian Grand Prix here at the Hungarian, and that is going to be a 46-lap race. Then moving on in a few weeks from now, so we are back again on the 11th of September for Monza. And that one, the Temple of Speed, is a fan favorite, of course. We all love a good bit of Monza Turn 1. Then, near the end of September, so we've got another week off, back onto the 25th, we will be seeing the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, the Belgian Grand Prix. 29 laps for that one, and 42 for Monza, just making sure you guys are aware. Then, after Spa, we will be back again for literally the week after for the Brazilian Grand Prix. Then break off back for the British Grand Prix on the 16th of October. Then the week after that we will have the Austrian Grand Prix, followed off by the Spanish Grand Prix, Canadian Grand Prix, US Grand Prix at Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course, and then Suzuka will end the season on the 4th of December. Exciting tracks coming up as always, but we are ready. We are on the grid. I'm excited. I'm nervous. 46 laps here at the Hungarian circuit. Getting ready. The revs will start rising for these cars as the lights do go on, and here we go. We have 5 red lights. We are green here in Hungary, and we are going to see a good start from Thomas Vance, but maybe not so much for some other drivers, as Frank Bisa has indeed crashed, apparently. We'll try and jump on board and see what has happened here. Frank Bisa is indeed off there on the side. Maybe just a load of wheel spin off the start. And it looked like it was a good start from Thomas Vance, and indeed it was. Eistein Chiapolone doing a great job on managing to keep up with the start. Yeah, a little bit of an off track there, but Frank Bisa, oh sorry, Jacob Bisa is pulling up in P3, so managed to get a jump on Shanna off the start, or I believe may have lost a position actually, so we'll have to wait and see what the order looks like. Jacob Bisa, no, did actually gain 3 positions. Alexander Shanna staying P4, but now with the mistake from Frank earlier, there are a couple of other drivers who should be here, but apparently did not take the start of the race. And that would be Colday, Trevor Landrum, and Jake Potts. So we'll have to wait and see what they do. But now on to lap 2 we go. And Frederick Larson is going to try and make a move here on Alex Shanna. Only a little bit too far back to really make anything work. But there seems to be a big lock up there for Shanna. And interesting that a couple of guys decided to start on hards. Few more guys starting on mediums, and then Jacob starts on the softs. Very interesting strategy call. We'll have to wait and see what ends up happening with that one, and we will check out what happened with Frank here. So off the start, he gets a load of wheel spin off the start, and yeah, just loses it, unfortunately. That is it. Just a little bit of a spinner. But we are back on it. Frederick Larson trying his best to catch up to the back of Alexander Shanna. And it looks as though Alex Shanna has been putting in a lot of work recently. Been trying to get as consistent as possible in that car. Did just come off the back of commentating with him, of course, for the AM League. So to see him racing immediately after is definitely an impressive feat. Here we go, on to lap 3. Anybody now within 1 second of the car in front will have DRS, and we know how powerful the DRS can be. Currently, 4 cars will have DRS. Potentially a 5th if Shanna can stick behind Jacob Bisa. Eistein, of course, wanting to try and catch up to the back of Thomas Vance. And hopefully, if Eistein can stick there, they can use the DRS, use a bit of the ERS as well, try and catch up a little bit faster, maybe make the move. But of course, depending on the tyre strategy, there will be a little bit of saving going on. You will have to have a little bit of a concern with that one. Andre Hansen had an off there, and Daniel Scott has managed to get past. So I'm not sure what happened, but Andre Hansen is now down in P7. Alex Shanna and Frederick Larson, we will see that back of the car open up with DRS. Alex Shanna also has DRS on Jacob Bisa, so currently it's all going to be a bit line and stern, as it looks as though Frederick Larson did actually fall out of DRS range of Shanna there, exiting turn 1 into the detection zone. And of course, it's only a small second DRS zone here at the Hungarian Grand Prix, but it is enough to maybe make a move if you're close enough out of turn 1. Has seen some interesting overtakes been done there. Then you go on to this very tricky middle sector, and it's very easy to lose the car and trip over your feet here in this sector. It is very, very difficult. Got to really place that car well. You're really smooth on the inputs to try and minimize the amount that you're destroying the tires, because if those tires go off a cliff, that middle sector becomes trickier and trickier. So much fast change of direction as well. I will say, currently our closest battle on track is Eistein and Thomas Vance. And again, Eistein, similar strategy to what Vance is on, starting on the hard tires. Does have DRS advantage, so obviously that gap will probably keep around this second mark, unless Vance can really turn on the afterburners and start going for it. But Eistein's doing a really good job of just keeping that car right up close. Like, we know how hard it is to follow. If you watch F1 in real life, obviously, you'll see how difficult it is to follow in this F1. Obviously, the W12 has so much grip, but not as much grip when you have to worry about the dirty air being flung off the car behind you. Oh, sorry, the car in front of you, I should say. So Eistein trying to use as much of the track as possible. Will open up the DRS, and you see immediately Thomas Vance ducking to the inside very aggressively. Can't do that when you've got the DRS open, so Eistein having to spend a little bit longer to reacquire the draft. Again, we see the difference there in speed is it's enough to make a move, but you have to be close. You can't just sort of be in this 5/10 mark. You kind of have to be within 4/10 coming out of the final corner to really make anything stick down that big straight that we have here at the Hungarian Grand Prix. As big off for Alexander Shanna. I cut back to him, and immediately we see him hit the wall in a very similar fashion to what I had when I did this race last season. I'd imagine clipped the curb a little bit too aggressively. We will jump on board and see. Yep. Spits him out. And that is car damaged. And race over for Alexander Shanna. Which is a little bit unfortunate. We already have two retirements here. Alexander Shanna and Frank Bisa, both retirees so far, with 3 non-starters in Cole Day, Trevor Landrum and Jake Potts, who still are not in this session, so we'll have to wait and see whether or not anything can develop here as we all jump on back on board with our leaders. And one of the only Nox/Lumos drivers left in Eistein trying to battle as hard as they can with Thomas Vance, and honestly, it's a pretty good battle so far. I mean, Eistein possibly has the pace in some sectors to overtake Vance, but then Vance is so quick through this middle sector that very difficult to catch up. If Eistein's not careful, those tires may go off a cliff, so Vance very much doing an Igor Filipic from last season and controlling the race pretty flawlessly, if I have to be honest. Placing his car where he needs to, maybe not quite in the same sort of running away level that we saw, but even still, when you're out in front and you're not having to worry about tire wear, you're not having to worry about tire degradation or anything like that, you can just get your head down and do laps. I imagine Vance is feeling pretty comfortable right now. Obviously, he's very much aware that Eistein is very close, but they're running away from P3 and P4, which, if that gap continues to extend, may warrant a free pit stop later on in this race. Of course, there will be a mandatory tire change, so you will have to switch from your hards, mediums, or softs to a different compound. If you started on the softs, for example, you can switch to the mediums or hards. If you start on the hards, you can switch to the softs or mediums, and if you start on the mediums, you can move to the softs or to the hards. As long as you change your tires at least once during the race, we're all good. In theory, if you wanted to, you could try hards to softs, which I believe is what Eistein and Vance will be trying to do. Trying to go as long as they possibly can on these hard tires, and then just hit a couple laps to the end and absolutely wreck quali laps with the softs. So we're probably going to see some new race lap records be set here in the Pro Series, as we'd probably expect. I would imagine. Especially around circuits that don't degrade the tires massively. I'd imagine we're going to see some pretty aggressive one-stop strategies, possibly some medium soft ideas floating around. This is your closest battle on track at the moment. Eistein Chiapolone versus the rather dominant Thomas Vance, I must admit. Vance just putting on a little bit of a masterclass, it seems like. And Eistein not too far off, so there are places where Eistein is quicker, but there are also places where Eistein is a little bit slower, that middle sector obviously being the big one here. You gotta worry about the dirty air so much that, honestly, it's so hard to make anything of it. Now into turn 1 we go. Eistein very, very close to the back end of Thomas Vance, and we may see a move on here. Eistein trying to go around the outside, long way around, does not find anything yet. Is still incredibly close to Vance, so maybe with a bit of attack ERS, they can get their way past, but we know how tricky it is to pass in these cars, especially at a circuit like the Hungarian, where the braking zones are so short. You really have to make your intentions known early so that both drivers can get through the corners safely. And again, with that little mistake from Vance, there could have been a potential for a move, but unfortunately not the case. And that is round 1 of the attempts to overtake going in Vance's favor. Obviously Eistein's going to be looking for round 2 coming out of the corner. Gets open that DRS, follows Vance all the way through the slipstream, all the way to the inside of the circuit. Is Eistein going to try and send it? Not quite yet. Eistein very much just holding on for now. Gets the power down nice and early. DRS open. Maybe has a little bit of a look on the inside, but more so just to let Vance know, hey, I'm still here, buddy. You've still got to worry about me. If you make one mistake, I am going through. As Eistein almost makes a mistake there. Going that wide. Very, very slippery out there on the edge of the circuit. Tires don't really have as much grip if you ain't on the tarmac, of course. It seems like Vance was really able to pull away in the middle sector here. Potentially even out of DRS range, so we'll have to wait and see whether or not Eistein has DRS coming into the final couple of corners. Well, Eistein has been really trying to push, really trying to get that position made on Vance. Almost pulls out of the DRS a little bit there, maybe worrying about potential engine temperatures, but I wouldn't imagine that that is a problem. Not for the cooling of these F1 cars. They're usually designed to be run for a little bit longer than this. And maybe a little bit of nursing back to the pits afterwards. But potentially the first drop-off on these hard compound tyres has started in the way of Eistein compared to Vance. Vance very quick through that middle sector, so I'll have to wait and see whether or not he can keep up this pace. Obviously, if he can, then chances are we probably won't see many movers now. All the action was at the beginning of the race, and Instead, what we will see is Vance carrying this lead all the way to the pit stops. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not Eistein tries for the undercut or the overcut as well. Only 7 cars left in this race as the pace is starting to pick up a little bit. 17.7 for Eistein, 18 flat for Vance. I am keeping an eye on one gap in particular. That is Frederick Larson versus Jacob Bisa. Frederick Larson is starting to pull down the gap a little bit. Last lap was an 18.6 versus Jacob's 19.7. So potentially we could see a Larson-Bisa battle. Make it 2 battles going on track at the same time. But I will say, Eistein is putting on a show on how you keep close to someone. Especially in a car as hard as this. I want to say Eistein is one of those drivers who I think potentially could have the pace for the win, provided they can keep on to the back of Vance and just don't make any mistakes. Obviously have to be careful going into the pits that you don't get a speeding penalty. It would be disastrous in a battle as close as this one. And the gap's still extending between these two, so even though they're really close on track, you know, Vance is pulling out of slipstream, maybe wasting a little bit of time, you're finding that the likes of Bisa and Larson are still dropping away from these two. And on the last laps, Jacob Bisa did answer back onto Frederick's slightly quicker lap that last time. That was an 18.3 in comparison to Frederick's 18.6. So the gap not getting much smaller as of yet, but we'll keep an eye on it just in case. These cars so aerodynamically efficient as well that when you're in clean air, you've got grip for days. The moment you get stuck behind someone, all of a sudden all that grip that you had, you lose about 30% of it. Trying to overtake, as it looks as though the tires for Vance are slowly starting to slip. A little bit of slide coming out of the back end of turn number 1. I do wonder whether or not Eistein will be able to make any moves happen, especially considering we're now on lap 15 of 46, and really they've only been close enough to make a move once, and they didn't really go for it. So we'll have to wait and see. Eistein with the DRS open is a little bit closer than they have been before, but not close enough to make a move. They can stick close enough out of turn 1. Maybe they can get the power down nice and early. Gets on the DRS. But no way past into turn 2 as well. So once again, Eistein is struggling to find the pace that they need to overtake onto the back of the likes of Thomas Vance. However, I am seeing another battle potentially in the works. Frederick Larson has finally managed to catch up to the back of Jacob Bisa. And this is one that I am going to watch with great interest. We're going to see whether or not Frederick Larson can finally get that move done overtake P3 and then maybe start chasing down the leaders of this race. However, with the pace that the leaders are doing in comparison to what everyone else is doing, it's going to be a tall order. I'd imagine that Beiser in those softs is going to really start to struggle for grip right about now. In comparison, Frederick is on those hard compound tires. You can see from the white stripes in comparison to those red striped tires. So there could be, and just as I say that, Beiser indeed knows that potentially Larson was going to try and make the move anyway. Instead of risking the race, it's just going to go into the pits, change tires, and just try and finish this race out. Obviously, that gives Frederick a nice little bit of DRS. We will jump back on board with the battle between Eistein and Thomas Vance, because once again, this battle has been going on since the start of the race, and it's showing no signs of slowing down at the moment. Much like the drivers. 18.3, 18.1 last lap. So they are picking up the pace in comparison to what everyone else is managing to do. 13 seconds the gap from Schiapolone to Larson. So I would imagine these guys are going to try and extend as much as they can. Potentially try and get a free pit stop over Frederick Larson. Which, honestly, would be very impressive to see here in the IFL Pro Series. They need to not battle together if they want to try and cause something like that. And indeed, Eistein's not going to be battling too hard. A bit of a lock-up there from Thomas Vance. Maybe offers Eistein the chance to get up the inside, but no, once again, not quite close enough. So hard to follow the cars through here, but Eistein doing a very good job at it, constantly putting pressure on Vance, making sure that Vance, if you make a mistake, I'm going to be right here for you, mate. DRS open for Eistein. We're going to see whether or not they're going to finally be able to make a move. Once again, just not quite close enough. Maybe here into turn 2, gets the DRS open. Again, not quite. And we're going to see another lap of Eistein trying to hang on to the gap that they have just reduced. And Frederick Larson has now started to push up a little bit in terms of pace. Started to pick it up just a touch. As the top 3 runners are on hards, everyone else is on the medium tyres now. So we will have to wait and see what that can bring. As Thomas Vance has just set the fastest middle sector of anyone so far, going purple, so Vance is wanting to pick up the pace. Really start putting the pressure on Eistein and saying, mate, if you want to keep up. I haven't even started trying yet. Vance can still push this pace a little bit quicker if he wanted to, but I'd imagine just keeping an eye on those tyres, if you're managing the gap, and to be honest, have at it. Eistein are a lot closer than they have been on the previous few laps. If they can hold on, then we will see whether or not there will be a potential move here into turn number 1. Eistein not really able to get a good run out of the final couple of corners, so yeah, not the most amazing final sector. Lost a little bit of time, so once again we'll have to wait and see whether or not the battle is going to rage on. In the meantime, while these people are battling out on track, and Eistein is trying to throw everything they can, if anyone wants to essentially ask anything in the chat, feel free to do so. We have the chat open for a reason. People can come in, talk as much as they'd like. But I am curious on the chat, who do you think is going to end up winning this race? Do you think Vance can hold off for the last 24 laps, or do you think Eistein is going to take him right at the end? I'll have to wait and see. Halfway through the race, and people on medium tires are starting to pit. So we have seen, I believe, that is Jacob Bissa also in the pit lane. Had a crash actually, I didn't see that on the screen, so I'll have to wait and see. And oh no. Yep. That'll do it. No tires, no suspension, no hope. And that is going to be Jacob Bissa out of the race. Meaning we only have 6 cars left, and out of those 6 cars, 2 of them are battling very, very closely indeed. Vance and Eistein trying to battle as hard as they possibly can. But Eistein seems to just not be able to, even with the DRS assistance, make any moves happen, so I imagine Vance is just really holding it down at the moment and just keeping a pretty consistent pace. Eistein is really trying to throw everything he can at Vance at the moment, and unfortunately, throughout all 23 laps of being within a second, he hasn't really been able to find anywhere where Vance is weak. And if it is through the middle sector, well, you have to deal with dirty air there, so nothing's really going to get done. Through Sector 1, if you're not close enough, then also a bit of a problem. So hard to overtake here at the Hungarian, as always. And we are just over the halfway point. We're just starting, I should say, over the halfway point of this race. And I will say, it is very much impressing me what Eistein has been able to do up to this point. As well as Thomas Vance having the nerves of steel to try and defend from everything Eistein's trying to throw at him. It'll be interesting to hear the thoughts of these two afterwards and see whether or not Eistein really had any answer, or whether it was just sort of clinging on and being dragged along by Thomas Vance. They are so similarly matched right now in terms of pace that, unfortunately, without that second advantage in lap time, you're not really going to find anywhere to pass. In the meantime, the likes of Frederick Larson starting to drop off a little bit. Big off there for Thomas Vance. I don't know what happened with Vance to cause a spin like that. Just too much of the curb. Rolls it backwards. And that, I'd imagine, is the end of Vance's race. To which, another car gone out of this race, and that will mean that Eistein now finally takes the lead of the race. We were talking earlier about how if you make that one mistake, Eistein's going to be there, and Eistein is going to take any chance they can get. But now, of course, what this does mean is there are only 5 drivers left in this race out of the start of 12. So, really, you could be any sort of skill level, still getting the points here, provided you can just finish the race. Races of attrition in the F1, it seems. Now, of course, Eistein really only has to worry about themselves now. As Daniel Scott has also crashed out of the race. We'll have to wait and see what happened here, going into the final corner. It's on the power too early, and once again, that is race over. Daniel Scott. 4 cars left. Turning into a bit of a last man standing. I honestly believe that calling these races a last man standing race would be would probably be more fitting at the moment. We'll see if we can even get 3 finishers for our podium. Obviously, we still have a few more laps left to go, so anything is possible here in the IFL. And yeah, the lack of finishers today is definitely a disappointing one. All three of them, of course, will need to pit again, or for the first time. I will say that Eistein really doesn't have much to worry about anymore. They just sort of run their own race, just do a bit of practice laps. And I do believe that Eistein, they keep up the pace that they're doing, well, they're going to start running away from Frederick Larson and then also potentially get a free pit stop, which will put them ahead of at least Hansen and Georgiev. But Eistein does still need to be careful. Still plenty of ways to mess it up and end up all sorts of wrong. We've seen that from the likes of Thomas Vance, a driver that we thought could easily take the win here, and with a lot of pressure from Eistein, makes the mistake, and that's all she wrote. So another 17 laps here to go in the IFL Pro season opener. If you are in the chat and wanting to get involved, follow us on the IFL, www.ifl, oh, not even IFL, iFormulaLeague.com. IFL.com would be nice. But of course, naturally, that website would probably be a little bit too short. Probably get a shortened URL link to it, to be honest. But, regardless, there is still racing going on. As much as it might not look like it right now, the interval gap is quite large between all these drivers, and Eistein will need to negotiate a bit of traffic soon in the likes of Grigor. We can hear Grigor there and see him on our screens just exiting turn 1, going into turn 2 now. So Eistein, probably not much longer before they will start to see those blue flags being waved for the car in front of them. And yeah, that pretty much confirms it, that Eistein will have a free pit stop over at least Andre Hansen and Grigor, but not Frederick Larson. So there is a potential for Frederick to end up winning this race, but I think it will require a catastrophic error from Eistein at this point. But we saw it from Thomas Vance, so there is a potential. Hansen now does finally come into the pits for his first pit stop on those medium tyres, and we will see whether or not he changes to a soft compound for the end of the race. I imagine that will be the case, as Eistein gets around the outside nice and easy of the back marker and is through. That's a little bit of DRS to boot, just in case they want to try and go for fastest lap, which at the moment they are still holding, so With no Thomas Vance, it's down to Frederick Larson to really try and push the pace and get that fastest lap. And only a few more laps to go here. 14 laps indeed, so we will see whether or not Eistein and Frederick will finally come into their pit stops for the first time. I would imagine we will see Eistein pitting relatively soon for maybe a set of soft tyres. You could probably take the soft tyres around about 10 or 11 laps, so I'd imagine Eistein is going to try and go to maybe lap 40 on these hards. And then pit for those soft tyres to the end. As Eistein has just set the new fastest lap of the race, just spice things up a little bit. There's a little bit of clean air as Frederick Larson does come into the pit lane, and we will see what tyres Frederick moves on to. As well as Grigor coming in for their pit stop as well. So once again, Eistein is not going to be really challenged by anyone in particular, and Eistein will get a free pit stop now that Larson has indeed pit. Will come out ahead, and now all it is just a sprint to the end for the rest of the remaining drivers who have not pit yet. So, soft tyres now for the rest of the runners. And we will see whether or not Eistein is coming in. And indeed they are. We'll see how quick this pit stop goes. And they do come out on a set of soft tyres. The game will show us hard tyres, because iRacing doesn't like to update those things visually, but I can confirm Eistein is now on a set of softs. And we'll be going to the end of this race on said soft tyres. 12 laps to go here then for the season opener of the iFormula League Pro season. And honestly, the race itself, you could argue, a pretty predictable one until Thomas Vance unfortunately had his little incident in the chicane and spun out. A couple of other retirees. Daniel Scott retiring after getting on the power a little bit too early out the final corner, taking himself out into the wall, with Jacob Bisa, Alex Shanna also having very similar incidents, just getting it on the exit of the kink and spinning around into the wall, nowhere to go. Colday, Trevor Landrum and Jake Potts not even starting the race, so out of the 12 cars we had, potentially only 4 are going to finish, and 3 of them didn't even take the start of the race. But what I will do next lap by, get an onboard with Eistein Chiapolone and see whether or not we can get an idea on what it's like to take an F1 car around here at speed. in a race situation. Obviously, we saw it in qualifying, but it's always a little bit different in the race. Especially if you're trying to push for fastest lap. But I believe Eistein's going to get fastest lap on this lap, so it's probably not going to matter that much. And indeed, a 15.990. I will say though, the sound of this car still sounds pretty good. No, it's not quite the same as the V8s and the V10s that we used to have, but the V6 turbo hybrid still very loud in comparison to a lot of their other counterparts. And it seems as though everyone has sort of resided to the fact that this will be their finishing positions, so provided nothing else happens, Eistein will win the first round of the championship. Larson finishing P2. Hansen gets a podium on his debut. Gotta be pretty happy with himself at least. Getting 5 positions, so maybe not as exciting of a race as he would have liked, but even still, P5 is not too shabby. 9 laps to go here. Around about 15 more minutes, I'd say, in terms of actual race length. And once again, we will give a massive shout out to our sponsors. Butt Kicker for providing awesome prizes for the winners of each league. Crowd Sim Racing, again, same thing for the winners of the Pro and Am series, providing those awesome wheels that they do. And then Extreme Scoring for helping us out on the back end and helping us manage our league as easily as possible. Don't have to worry about spreadsheets anymore. Just get involved on Extreme Scoring and boom, everything is at your fingertips. And at the rate that it's going, unless Larson manages to find 1.5 seconds per lap out of nowhere, he doesn't really stand a chance of overtaking Eistein, unless Eistein makes a big mistake. Which again, I think Eistein's very much just on the end of it now, and it's just sort of gonna relax, chill, do the laps that they need to do, as that will be Grigor getting overtaken by Frederick Larson, who is now a lap down on P1 and P2. And here is Andre Hansen as well. Our third place man, And currently highest gainer of the lot of them. Obviously Frederick Larson started P2, looking like he's going to finish P2. Eistein starting P3, looking like Eistein's going to end up winning this race for the Lumos team / Nox team. And with 6 more tours of the island, as they say, it will soon find out what the results are going to be. I am going to be very curious to see what happens regarding these races moving forward. Hopefully we can get a few more finishers, a few more participants, and we can see a bit of a closer fought battle up out the front. Very close for a few laps. Thomas Vance, unfortunately, having an incident on lap 25 of the race. That meant that this battle for P1 ended up in a 1-car race, and again looking like it is a one-man standing type of affair where Eistein came out the victor. So we'll have to wait and see what happens at the Temple of Speed after this in 2 weeks time, so not next week but the week after. We'll be at the lovely Temple of Speed, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see, hopefully, a bit more action than what we managed to get today in the Hungarian. Again, Hungarian not really known for its action, so we can forgive it a little bit. But again, if you want to get yourself involved in the Pro Series or the AM Series, hit us up on iFormulaLeague.com. Get yourself involved. Come check us out on the Discord as well. Subscribe on our YouTube if you do enjoy what you see here, the AM being one of our more spectacular series. Go back and watch that. And any of the series that we've done before on the channel. F2 from last season, highly recommend watching it if you can. That was a mega season. F3, again, same thing. Absolutely mega season for the F3 guys. The F3 guys always put on a show. But for the F1, unfortunately, lack of participants, lack of finishers, meant that the race wasn't as exciting as it could have been. Still a lot of good action for the first few laps, though. About half of the race, we at least had a battle going on track, so I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Eistein has done an incredible job in that Mercedes car. I do believe, as far as fastest lap goes, Eistein has it with a 15.9, and I don't think Frederick Larson is even going to attempt such a lap. You'd have to really put in a qualifying lap to get that. And I believe Eistein is just going to wrap it up here. With potentially all of the points they need. Potential safest driver, potential for fastest lap too. And of course, winning the race. The most important thing. And 2 more tours around the island we go. To wrap up the opening round of the iFormula Pro season. And of course, the other thing we want to give a massive shout out to is the people behind the cameras that we have here in the IFL. I want to give a shout out to Track Cams for Gourmet. Provide us with some lovely, lovely replica cameras for the circuits that we race on. Won't be using them for every calendar, every track on the calendar. But highly recommend checking them out. The work they do is absolutely incredible and brings the action on track a little bit closer to your screen. Makes you feel a little bit more like you are indeed there. As we do see Frederick Larson come into the pit lane. Now, that is an interesting decision. I'm wondering whether or not he may have a penalty to serve, or is this going to be for a pit stop? Looks like it is. A pit stop, maybe for some fresh tyres. Going to try and get fastest lap of the race on the final lap of the race. And of course, Eistein now cannot respond to that. So Larson knows that he's got P2 well and truly covered. Probably not going to get P1, so instead, make things a little bit interesting. Let's turn up party mode with Frederick Larson. Oh, you're going to be able to do it, mate. This is what we need to see. Is he capable of putting in lower than a 15.9? And you know, I want to see it. We've got white flag. Means that Eistein is on to the final lap of the race. Half a lap ahead of what Frederick Larson was able to do, so here we go, on board with Frederick Larson as he does take the white flag. He is all geared up for a qualifying lap. Let's see, on board with him, can he go purple through Sector 1? No DRS assistance, so it is going to be difficult. But we shall see. He goes really deep into Turn 2. Flat out through the sweep on these fresh soft tyres. Eistein, purple through Sector 2. And has indeed finished the race with a 1:15.915. Frederick Larson currently pushing the car for all he's got. Purple through Sector 1 by 0.2. Lost a lot of time through Sector 2. Potentially way too much time. Never mind, actually. I thought the timing beam was a little bit earlier than that, but it's not. 28.5 for Frederick Larson compared to 28.3 in Sector 2 for Eistein, and with the gap that he had, they're going to be pretty equal going on to the final lap. Did he manage to get the lap in? A 1:15.893 will do it for Frederick Larson. He takes home second place and fastest lap of the race, unless Andre Hansen can answer back, but I don't think he can do. Andre Hansen is just going to look to finish it out in P3 here for the iFormula League Pro season. Comes home P3 for Andre Hansen, P1 for Eistein Chirpalone, P2 for Frederick Larson, Grigor in P4, and then the rest of our finishers, unfortunately, D and Fs. And of course, we will try and get confirmation of that up on the screen for you all. Here are your race results. And indeed, Eistein did win the race. Frederick Larson in P2, Andre in P3, Grigor P4, and then unfortunately the rest of the field all very much a DNF. But we can hear an interview from our second place man, Frederick Larson. We'll bring him in here, see what he has to say about, to be honest, probably a not very exciting race. Frederick, mate, taking home P2 in the Pro Series. Your first time out in the, well, first race out, I should say, in the Pro season. You know, in terms of pace, you know, you managed to get the fastest lap at the end. Maybe not quite quick enough to catch up to the likes of Vance and Eistein when they started, but, I mean, overall, you know, you started P2, you finished P2, gotta be pretty happy with yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't have the pace in the race. It was just, yeah, I don't know what it was, but they were incredibly quick, and I got the worst start ever, so, yeah. From that on, I was just happy to get a podium when I think it was P4 after the start, so, yeah, I'm happy. And then it was just, I was trying in the end just to keep the guy with a last name that I can't pronounce. I was just trying to keep him, you know, so he couldn't pit for the fastest lap. So yeah, that was basically my goal. Yeah, and I did that, and I got the fastest lap, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, so even though I nearly bended on the last lap.
Yeah, we did watch on board for the last lap just to see whether or not you could do it. That's why I kind of had a feeling you hit for fresh tires, and it was, okay, cool, we'll jump on board. Let's see if he can do it. And yeah, there was a couple of spooky moments, let's say.
Yeah. I think it was after the fast left-hander in Sector 2. Mm-hmm. I nearly bended there. But I managed to catch it, thankfully. I mean, if that had been like 5 laps older, all the tires, I would probably have ended in the wall or something like that. So
yeah, a little bit risky, but hey, it pays off at least for the bonus point.
Yeah,
if not a little bit scary.
Yeah, I mean, we need to have some scary moments once in a while.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, it's like, I can't remember which racing driver it was said it, but if you're not scared, you're not driving fast enough, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. And I was actually quicker than I thought in the qualifying as well, because I came in with 10 minutes of practice and then just gunned it. So yeah, pretty happy with the overall result. It is much better than the Formula 3 race I did just before, so yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But again, mate, I mean, a P2 here and a good start to the season overall. Hopefully, when we race at Monza for the next part, you'll bring back some of that pace, and maybe we'll see you on the top step instead.
Yeah, hopefully.
Oh, I mean, Monza's easy, right? You know, you just avoid the carnage in turn 1, and the rest of it's, not so bad.
Yeah, it's pretty easy, it's just straight all the way, so what can go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what people worry about with Monza. It's, it's an easy track.
Yeah.
But anyway, mate, before we let you go, is there anyone you want to thank?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the team, they did a great job again. I feel a bit bad for Vance. He had an amazing pace. It seems like he battled a lot with the Eistein guy.
Yes.
So
yeah.
But yeah, it's a sad situation for him. But I'm sure he'll win the next race. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Vance is one that we're going to look at to potentially win these races here. Obviously, him and Eistein now, I think, have proven that those two are really close on pace. We saw a 25-lap battle between the two of them, so unfortunately, Eistein was never really able to make the move, but yeah, hopefully you can get yourself involved.
Yeah, I was hoping to get involved. I thought they would slow each other down because I could see at the Delta they were half a second behind each other all the time nearly, so I just thought, hopefully they can slow each other down, but they were just going faster than me every lap, so yeah, kind of gave up in the end.
Yeah, so. It's tough out here, but hey, again, Temple of Speed next week.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Well, not next week even. We've got a week break, and then it's back at it. So we've got this race. We've got 1 week off, then we're back on. Then I believe it's another week off, then back on. But again, check the schedule, iFormulaLeague.com. You'll get yourself involved. It's all good. If you're in the Discord, it'll be there as well, so it's all fine. But yeah, mate, I mean, again, good result from yourself, P2. Always a pleasure talking with you. You're always a nice guy. Well, for the most part. But yes, again, we'll send the champagne out for your P2, and we'll see you, hopefully, back on the podium at the Temple of Speed, mate.
Yeah, hopefully.
Awesome. Cheers, buddy.
Yes.
And that'll about wrap it up here for us on the broadcast. Again, these are your race results. Eistein taking home the win from Frederick Larson, from Andre Hansen, from Grigor. And then your DNFs with Thomas Vance, Daniel Scott, Jacob Bisa, Alex Shanna, Frank Bisa. And then your did not starts of Jake Potts, Cole Day, and Trevor Landrum. Overall, a relatively exciting battle between Eistein and Thomas, led in disaster for Thomas, and a race that went in Eistein's favour. Some new names to keep an eye on. Can't wait to see you all for Monza in 2 weeks' time. But for now, this has been Alyssa, your commentator for the IFL, and we will see you